Hey guys, and welcome to askmark number 18, I do believe, and happy Friday to everyone who is watching this on Friday, and happy Monday to all our podcast listeners out there. Marcus, how the devil are you today? Have you had a good week?
Yeah, so far so good. I got a delivery of a bunch of new house plants, so my house is getting a bit more green, trying to get the sort of the oxygen back into sort of things and lighten things up. So
cool.
Yeah, been getting my green fingers on.
Cool. I can't wait for those to be in our green recycling bin within the month. No, I'm sure you're very good with that sort of thing. I'm sure you're very good with that.
They have a lot of instructions with them so that I know exactly when and how to water them and what kind of soil and stuff. So yeah, they'll be fine.
You have to massage the leaves.
Yeah.
Sing it bird songs. Anyway, let's crack on with some questions. So the first question is from Alligator Bird. Awesome name. They say, hi Mark and Sean, should I test my rig's BCD dry suit inflator on a dry land during the winter? Some people say it's okay to test the inflators outside of the water, dry air, but rigs should always be tested, e.g. at a 5 meter depth. Some people inflate their BCD already. I just go for it, to be honest with you. Which procedure helps to prevent the formation of ice anywhere on my equipment? Thanks.
Yeah, so the main reason why you'll see this kind of all over, don't purge your regulator second stage or don't sort of inflate, is that whenever anything goes from a high pressure to a low pressure, like when you're breathing from a compressed air cylinder, it gets cold. So if you mix that with an already cold environment and an already wet environment, then ice is really easily formed. So you can test your regulators. It's just I wouldn't use the purge button, especially on the surface, because on the surface things are going to be sort of wet, they're going to be cold. So if you press that purge button, then the valve is quite highly likely to just freeze in the open position. You then have to turn it off and you're wasting a lot of gas. So what a lot of divers do is they just literally breathe from that second stage. The warmness of your breath should help to prevent that. A lot of divers, if you're diving in like serious Arctic conditions, they'll just have like a pot of warm water then and there so that you can pour it into the second stage just to get rid of any sort of ice that's forming. As far as the inflator goes, touch wood, I've never had a problem sort of with an inflator, but yeah, you can orally inflate it. Again, you're getting the warm gas from your mouth. That's just going to sort of warm up that valve. But yeah, a few little bits, especially when you're like initially testing on dry land. If your gear's out in front of you and you're literally just pressing that purge button, yeah, fine. If it starts to stick or free flow, then you just turn the valve off. But yeah, you do need to check that everything's working properly. It's just when you first jump in, try and avoid sort of pressing the purge button on your second stages, especially with the mouthpiece upright, because then they really do like to free flow. But otherwise, I don't tend to worry too much about it. But instead of pressing the purge button, I'll just sort of purge it in my mouth, if anything.
Cool. Any other tips, advice?
If you're doing it, do it near someone else so that if there is a free flow, they can shut down your valve if you can't reach it for whatever reason. And that way you're not drawing too much attention to yourself and you're not wasting too much gas.
Cool. Excellent. Hopefully that helps you out. The second question is from Aludden. They say, how do you reason... What's wrong with I should really wear my glasses with this. How do you reason about choosing gradient factors? Recent research seems to recommend gradient factor low set higher and a gradient factor high set lower than any other of the presets, e.g. shear water.
Yeah, you can take this one, Sean, can't you?
No, thank you. Gradient factors, that's a great cereal. It's great with milk.
So for those of you who don't know, gradient factors are a way that you can almost adjust your decompression algorithm. You will have two numbers and it's kind of a ratio. You'll have a low reading, and then a high one. So I think a popular one nowadays is like a 50, 55, 80. I think that's about the general consensus. The consensus changes because the low value is basically going to control where your deepest stop is likely to start, and the high number is normally how long your end stops are going to be, and by sort of adjusting each of those numbers, you can basically adjust how long your deco stops are and where they are. A lot of it is just trial and error, basically, just sort of trying it out. I mean, you're already doing the right thing and you're looking at the research. One of the most recent research things is that deep stops, they don't think they're as beneficial as they were previously thought to be, which is why the low value is starting to go up. I think the low value used to be somewhere, again, it's personal preference. So a lot of people, they were diving like 30, 35s or something maybe, and then sort of 40s. But I think nowadays, I think 50s and higher tend to be the more general preference. And then as far as your high reading, I think a lot of people are on like 75s to maybe 85s. 85 can be a bit aggressive for some people, but yeah, a lot of it is just personal trial and error. Just try something out. If you can, a good way of doing it is if you have two separate dive computers, you dive them concurrently. So you have one as a control and then the other one where you just have the gradient factor that you're planning to sort of dive on, and just see how that affects your deep stops and how long they are and where they are. Other computers like sort of a lot of sheer waters, you can change your gradient factor whilst you're in the water. So if you're on a deep stop, just fiddle about and change that sort of gradient factor and see what it would be. I know, I mean, some divers, I think they dive on like 95, 95 or 100, 100, so that they know exactly where that boundary is and they're comfortable knowing like how close they're getting to that boundary. And another nice feature on sheer waters, if you've updated them, I think this is quite an old update, but make sure you're running on the most current sort of firmware or software, is that you can have the surface gradient factor on the screen. So it actually tells you and sort of shows you how your gradient factor is like almost changing in real time. So that's quite a nice little feature. But yeah, just do your research, read some papers, sort of ask around, and yeah, see what a lot of other people are diving on for your particular dive, because they may be doing like deep short dives or something. So yeah, but I think the general consensus is somewhere around like 55, 80 or something. I think, I could be wrong, it's been a while since I've looked into gradient factors. They're complicated.
You took the words right out of my mouth. All of that stuff you just said. Yeah. Definitely.
And they're constantly changing. With new research, they're just kind of like, oh, actually, no, we should actually change it to this. But yeah, it's one of those things, you don't want to go too aggressive too quickly, because it could affect you like 5-10 years down the line. And I'd rather be a bit more conservative. I'd rather spend a few more minutes decompressing underwater than just chatting nonsense on the dive boat. So yeah, cool.
All right, hopefully that helps out. Next question is from Carlos, and he left this question on the Surface Wetsuit unboxing. He says, this product and the Patagonia wetsuit both appear to be made from the Yulex and are both designed for surface/limited depth. Patagonia focuses on surface water sports, and it doesn't market, and it's not marketed for the scuba market. Fourth Elephant, wow, that's a new. Fourth Element markets to both environments. Do you expect to see the Yulex wetsuit good for depth in the future? Or is the current formulation of the Yulex material limited until more research is done, or more of a case of manufacturers learning about the material before creating suits that can handle depth? Is Henderson's green product a formulation of Yulex that already handles depth? Keep up the great work. So yeah, stuff.
Yeah, so Yulex, again, for those who might not know, Fourth Element have a new wetsuit that's called the Surface wetsuit, and it's made out of Yulex, which is effectively, instead of petroleum-based product, this neoprene is effectively, it's a certain type of tree. I can't remember what it's called, but they grow these trees responsibly. Everything, it's all like, I don't think it is, not FDA, but it's all like approved by whoever it is. And they harvest these trees, and then they basically filter everything down. They take the stuff that they don't want out, they compress it, and then they basically turn it into a natural rubber, and then they create this Yulex neoprene alternative. It's basically a rubber, and yeah, it's much more environmentally friendly for everyone involved. I think it's supposed to be a bit more hypoallergenic as well, because they take out a certain protein. But yeah, the Surface, as the name suggests, is marketed as a surface wetsuit for snorkeling and sort of bodyboarding, surfing, that kind of stuff. It's more designed as a surface sort of water sports type of wetsuit, as opposed to a scuba diving wetsuit, which tend to use different sort of styles of neoprene, because if you make something soft and flexible, then it's more likely to compress. And of course, at depth, you want to resist that compression, so you still have that insulation. So yeah, as you mentioned, you'll probably find that in a few years' time and in a couple generations, you'll get a Yulex dive or something that is a bit more compression resistant. Greenprene started. I heard about Greenprene a year or two ago, maybe, and I think it's very similar. I think they're quite cagey about what it is exactly, but from what I've seen, it's basically, I think they just called it a natural foam material or something, which is really vague, and I think it's basically similar to Yulex. It might be ever so slightly different manufacturing process or something. But I haven't seen much about it as far as compression resistance compared to traditional neoprene. So I wouldn't specifically say, yeah, definitely go for this. I think it is a bit more marketed at scuba divers as opposed to the sort of the Fourth Element Surface or the Patagonia. So I think it's definitely the way the future of wetsuits are going to go. I just think it needs a couple generations for that sort of style of neoprene to basically go down. And also there was, I read an interesting comment a while back, and they were saying that the protein that they remove from whatever it is that makes it sort of a bit more hypoallergenic is effectively what makes it like neoprene, but it also makes it like heat resistant and UV resistant and whatnot. So yeah, I think it's worth waiting a little bit just to see how the longevity of these suits sort of lasts, because we know what neoprene is like. You'll get a good few years out of it, and if you're repeatedly sort of compressing it, eventually it thins out. But if you get a wetsuit and you're sort of diving it out in the sun or something, or in warm temperatures, and it just crumbles or something, that's no good. So yeah, I think hopefully in a few years' time, this kind of Yulex or something similar that is like plant-based, because a lot of wetsuits are like not ceramic, but limestone based now instead of petroleum based. So there are more economical or eco-friendly alternatives already, but yeah, I think Yulex is just another alternative, and hopefully in a few generations time it'll just get better and better.
What will end up happening is they'll just have a plant, so then you stand by the plant and then it fast grows around you.
It sizes you up.
Yeah,
That'd
exactly.
Didn't we talk about like spray-on wetsuits or something at one time?
Yeah, that sounds like a Daily Scuba News or a Weird Wednesday.
I feel like we talking about that at some point, but
we speak about a lot of things here on Simply Scuba. Yeah, man. All right, cool. So the next question is from David Brayford. He says, what are your thoughts on a long hose octopus rather than long hose primary donate? As COVID-19 is likely to be around for some time, would it be safer?
Yeah. So you either get the standard setup, as I kind of call it, with like a 75, 80 centimeter hose to your primary, and then like a 90 centimeter, maybe 100 centimeter octo hose. The way I dive with a 2.5 or 2.1 meter long hose. So it's really long on my primary. It goes down my back, it loops under something on my hip, it then goes around my neck and then in my mouth. If I need to donate, the main reason I do primary donate instead of a octopus donate is that in an emergency, I know for a fact this one in my mouth is working. So if I take that out and hand that to my buddy, they can take a breath from that. They also have 2.1 meters to do whatever it is. I have my alternate around my neck, so I can swap to that really easily. The other way of doing that would be to have a traditional short primary hose that I'm breathing from on the dive, and then a really long octo hose. The only downside that I can see from that is that you don't really know that that is 100% working when it's needed. Chances are fairly high if you checked it at the beginning of the dive that it's probably still going to be working perfectly fine. However, something could have happened to it whilst you're on the dive. So when you deploy it, your buddy just gets a mouthful of water or something. You don't know, but it is a better option to at least get a slightly longer hose than the 90 centimeter standard hose that comes on most octos. The first instance where I had to use it, it was I was teaching, and it was an exercise, so it wasn't an issue, but we were doing sort of out of air sort of scenarios, and yeah, I handed them my octo and they were breathing from that. It's like 90 centimeters long, and we're holding on to one another's BCDs, and yeah, I think I just kind of like turned to see someone, and it just pulled it ever so slightly out of their mouth, because 90 centimeters, when you've got all your gear on and the first stage is behind your head going to someone else, 90 centimeters really isn't that long. So yeah, a slightly longer hose is actually beneficial. I probably wouldn't go for a full 2.1 meter long hose, because that's a lot of hose to route around your body if it's not up sort of in your mouth. But yeah, if you are going for a traditional setup and you really do want to keep it like sterile for sort of COVID, then yeah, a longer octo hose I would recommend. It's just make sure that you can sort of route it neatly so that it doesn't sort of get tangled up anywhere.
Cool. I hope that helps you out. Next question is from RV Billy. Can you discuss the effects of cannabis at depth or on the human body after diving? Not necessarily smoking, but maybe just have edibles. Is there any scientific studies that suggest or show negatives, obviously, about weed and diving, Mark? I know you're a massive pothead, so...
I mean, before a dive, I'd avoid it, because, I mean, even at depth, obviously we know that nitrogen alone is narcotic, and at some people even as low as like 10 meters depth. That increase in pressure makes the gas nitrogen alone narcotic. Oxygen at depth can become narcotic. So something that's narcotic on the surface at atmospheric pressure is going to be more narcotic under the water, and it means that it's going to stay inside of your tissues. I don't think there are any studies on it, because I don't think it's ethical for divers to do that, and who would be the control group. But yeah, I wouldn't advise it even like a few days beforehand, because I think it can stay in your tissues for like days. And
yes, it can.
Yeah, all right. I don't think there's been a great deal of sort of research into it. As far as after a dive, I don't know anything about it, but I can't imagine it's going to help with decompression specifically in any way. If anything, it might hide signs and symptoms of decompression illness, and that would worry me, because if you don't feel that unusual sensation, that could be a sign or a symptom of decompression illness, because it's being covered up. Then it goes untreated and undiagnosed any longer. But I don't know. I don't think there's much sort of research into it. But from my limited expertise, I think something that is naturally narcotic on the surface is going to be even worse underwater. And I don't know enough about it to specifically say, oh yeah, it'll open these receptors or do something. But my general consensus would just be avoid it as much as possible, just in case.
Makes sense. But just in case. We did do a daily scuba news on wheeze and scuba diving, which I'll pin up the top there for our YouTube family. Which talks about, I think Dan released a statement, or they released like an article about it a year or so ago, explaining, not necessarily explaining it, but I think they're going to a little bit more in depth. But I think it is like you say, there's not that much research in it at the moment. It's not like it's not like alcohol where you can just go down to the shop and buy some weed. It's not like that at the moment. So it will be, but not anytime soon. Yeah.
A lot of places that it is becoming legal, and it does kind of make sense. So I'm kind of on board with it. I've never smoked it myself, but I don't think it's
not a good point.
But it does seem to have a lot of benefits for a lot of people if you use it correctly. But I try and avoid it for a few days before, and probably at least 24 hours after a dive, just to be safe.
Cool. Right. If you've got any thoughts about marijuana and scuba diving, leave your comments below. If you do it, let us know how it affects you. The more we talk about it. Huh?
Anonymously.
Yeah,
we won't rat you out.
change your name to anonymous, and your.
But also, if there are any. If there are any studies that you're aware of, post a link down so we can read up on it, because that'd be quite interesting.
Well, the more information, like you say, Mark, if you found it quite hard to find information about it, so the more information we can gather, the more people can learn and be educated by it. Next question is from Sparky ABQ. Hello, Sparky. He says, "Hi guys, love your show. Thank you very much. What do you think about the Todd style backplate and wing?" I said it. For side mount / back.
Did you say
back mount?
Did you say Todd or Toddy?
Toddy.
Okay.
I'm going to say Toddy. Yeah, I totally said Toddy. Anyway,
we'll rewind it.
No, we won't. Discuss. Go.
So Toddy is basically where you put the wing underneath your backplate. So normally on a backplate and harness setup, you'll have the backplate flat against your back, and then the wing on top of that, and then your cylinders. In a Toddy style setup, you have the wing against your back, and then the backplate on the outside. And I think in some cases you even get a second backplate which almost sandwiches it all together.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, I've never done it myself. I've seen some divers use it, and some divers sort of get on with it perfectly fine. And it kind of makes sense because you've got all the things there. The things that put me off is that, one, your wing is underneath all of your straps and the back plate, so it won't get the full inflation. But also the harness will need to allow for that, so you almost need to have a little bit of extra slack so that when your wing is inflated, there is room in that sort of harness so it can expand. So, yeah, I think some people do it, but I don't think it's a big sort of movement. I don't think lots of divers do it. If you want to go down the side mount route, I usually recommend just go for a side mount harness because it's specifically for side mount. It does everything that you want, and it doesn't compromise anywhere. Whereas this one feels like you're almost like forcing something to do something that it isn't. I could be wrong. I've never used it myself. It could be the next greatest thing in scuba diving. But looking at it from what I've seen online, I don't think I'll be doing one anytime soon.
Okay. Do you dive with the toddy system? Again, let us know your thoughts and comments below. The more we help out, the more we discuss, the better our scuba diving community will be. So question 7 is from Ken Chris. Hopefully I pronounced that right. It says, hey guys, I want to ask if you have any information about the DGX dive gears from Dive Gear Express. Have you ever tried one? Are they using the same technology as Dive Right / Deep 6 or Apex on their regulators? Are they reliable? I'm eyeing up on... Sorry, I got a little bit of spit now at my throat. I'm eyeing up buying their full set package since I'm on a tight budget and trying to start on the backplate and wing setup. I hope that you can shed some light. Thanks a lot for coming to visit us. Oh, thanks a lot, and come visit us here in the Philippines if travel restrictions are gone. If you pay for our flights, mate.
Yeah, all right, I'll see you there.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, is this gear good? Is it reliable? And also as well, maybe what we could throw in there, Mark, is if he's on a tight setup, a tight budget for backplate and wings, what are your options? What would you recommend?
All right. So DGX is like I think that's Dive Gear Express's like own brand. But I've had a quick look on it, and a lot of it seems, I think we mentioned this last week, that a lot of different brands share technology. And if you go through their sort of lineup, a lot of it is just rebadged from other brands. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what logo it has on it. I mean, I was looking, and some of the things are Hollis, and you look at something and you're like, oh, well, that's obviously a Scuba Pro, and that's a Mares. But yeah, it doesn't really matter that it has someone else's logo or branding on it. When it comes to regulators have to go through certain like regulations and testing to make sure that they are up to scratch. So yeah, they'll be sort of perfectly fine. The only place where it'll fall down is trying to get replacement parts and getting them serviced in certain areas. If you're qualified and you're doing it yourself, then yeah, okay, you can probably get away with some certain stuff. But for most people, it's definitely a no-no trying to service your own regulators without the sort of the official service kits. But yeah, as far as regulators, they'll do the job. They might not have the same sort of flair that a lot of the like official brands that have sort of created it, but it'll do the job. As far as cheap backplate and wing setups, yeah, you're looking in the right place, looking at like complete sets. As much as you can buy the individual components, actually a lot of the times it does actually just work out cheaper just to buy the complete set, because the manufacturer, it's a bit cheaper for them because there's less packaging and all that, and then that sort of cost saving gets put onto the end customer. So yeah, instead of buying all the individual components, yeah, one complete set that has everything that you need can often work out a lot cheaper in the long run. But yeah, I haven't personally used DGX dive gears. I think they're more of an American brand. We don't really get them over here, but a lot of their stuff, it's, yeah, as you say, you can see some similarities. I think I had a look at one of their first stages and it's basically a Scuba Pro Mark 25. But yeah, Yeah. They all have to be tested. So no one makes a bad regulator. It's just some people make better than others.
Yeah. Bit more fancier. Well, you know what I'm going to say next, guys. If you have this gear, so Dive Gear Express, if you use any of their gear, let us know in the comments to obviously help out Ken on that. Yeah, and give him some thoughts down below. Yeah, that's cool. But you're right though. Like the thing is, like every brand doesn't steal designs, but like there are patents. So like, why would Scuba Pro want to keep a patent of an older model when they can sell that patent if they don't make it anymore? And then that means then you get a brand that has a similar feature to an older Scuba Pro regulator, but Scuba Pro are making money by selling that, and then they're making money because they can create an affordable regulator for someone, you know what I mean? So yeah. As long as they're all tested and stuff like you say, it should be fine. Right, on to the last question. It is a long one, and I know I normally joke and say about 3 words, but this is a long question. So I apologise if I butcher this, because I'm going to. It's from James W. He says, "Hi guys, hope you're all doing well." Yes, we're all fine, thank you. Sorry about the long question, but I've just got an X-Deep Zen wing and harness. I need some assistance. When the back plate is at the correct height, the wing itself sits quite low. Is this the design, or is there anything I can do about it? I've adjusted the wing as high as it can go. Next, I'm finding that the waistband sits quite high compared to other harnesses I've worn. It's around his belly button. Lastly, I've just put the X-Deep weight pockets on my waist, and I'm quite thin. It's taken up the entire webbing available, of the webbing available. Normally I wear a line cutter on my waist. Where can I put this now on my setup? Keeping in mind I already have one on my shoulder strap. Thank you for your help, and sorry about the long questions. Keep up the amazing work. We don't apologise, James. We love these questions. Mark loves these questions, and I love butchering them whilst trying to read them. But yeah, don't ever apologise, man. Mark, help him out.
So when the backplate is in the correct position, the wing itself is quite low. So yeah, I think that's more of the design. They're trying to put more of the buoyancy lower down towards the smaller of your back, around the hips. The important thing is that when you're in the water, it holds you horizontal and not sort of too head upright. Because you'll notice on the Zen, there's very little kind of buoyancy up around the top, around the shoulders. They want the big sort of amount of sort of buoyancy down towards your hip, because that's typically where your kind of center of buoyancy wants to be. So I don't think that's going to be an issue, but it's more you have to kind of test it out in the water to make sure. Next, I'm finding the waistband sits quite high compared to other harnesses. Yeah, the Zen is very different, or the backplate especially, and the harness is very different to a traditional style where the shoulder straps just become the waistband. On the Zen, it kind of goes down, or the shoulder straps go down to the lowest point, which gives you a bit more movement in the shoulder to get in and out, and then in the back of the back plates, it kind of comes up and then becomes your waistband. So yeah, I think that's just the design. There's nothing particularly wrong with it. It's just, yeah, the Zen's way of trying to give you a bit more shoulder space to be able to get out in a DIR style setup. If you've got adjustable quick release straps, then even better. But yeah, the waistbands, I think they have sort of moved it up just to sort of give you a bit more space. Lastly, X-Deep weight pockets on the waistband. Yeah, you're quite skinny, so it takes up the entirety of the webbing. Yeah, that just is what it is. Where can you put a line cutter? If you've got one on your shoulder, then I'd probably put it on a dive computer. Try and put it on your wrist strap of your dive computer, if you have a wrist-mounted dive computer. Otherwise,
stick it on your regulator. Your second stage.
Try not to do that.
Don't do that.
The X-Deep, do they have webbing on the outside? I know they have a D-ring on the outside. but I don't know whether you can thread it onto sort of that. But yeah, it's basically, you want to be able to think of, if I can't reach that one over my shoulder, where can I reach? And sort of the wrist is usually a quite sort of easy one. Otherwise, yeah, it's kind of like thigh pockets or something.
Okay.
Yeah. If you've got no real estate around your waist, then yeah.
Cool.
You can't even put it on a chest strap because that's too close to that one. So yeah, I just put it on on your dive computer strap.
Cool. There you go, dive computer strap. Excellent. And that is it. That is another episode of Ask Mark, Ask Shark, question time. Ask Mark anything, done for another week. Excellent. Hopefully we've answered all your questions. And hopefully you guys in the comments below are asking or helping us as well. You know, as I say, we're a community here, so everyone get involved and making sure that everyone's getting the best and the right advice, basically. So again, everyone's doing so well using the hashtag AskMark, so continue to use that. We will then continue to search for it and continue to adding to these to create this show, which I'm surprised has reached number 18. This is the longest Q&A I think we've ever done in the history of the channel. Normally we either give up and no one asks questions. So thank you everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you for everyone.
And they're all unique questions. Clever questions. Yeah.
Exactly. No, it's good. It's nice to have that. It's nice to kind of kickstart off things again, because I was a little bit worried at first when we first started doing Ask Mark, but now don't have to worry about that. But as I say, use the hashtag AskMark in somewhere in your question. We use that to search for your question to add it to the show. If you're listening to this on the podcast, go over to YouTube and then just comment on a video, your question, and then hey presto, jobs are good. And if you are listening to this on a podcast, don't forget to subscribe to us, please. We need those podcast numbers coming up. The podcast has been a bit higgledy-piggledy over the past couple of weeks, but I will talk more about that in our Deco Stop podcast, which at the moment is purely a podcast. It was a bit on YouTube. Now it's not on YouTube just because for ease of editing and stuff, but there might be a case of it might go back up. Deco Stop podcast, listen to that for our updates on our website and social media pages. Anything else, Mark? Anything else that you'd like to add? No,
yeah, as Sean says, sort of let us know what gradient factors you use and why, or what you think about sort of
6.
recyclable.
That's my
6.
gradient factor.
You just use a 6.
Yep.
You can explain your M values, can't you, Sean?
Yeah, 7.5 QM bananas. Yeah,
that's how to end a dive safely.
Just eat a banana out of water. Yeah, that's all you need.
If you know anything about cannabis at depth, sort of let us know. If you've been doing any experimentation on your own, let us know or pop a link to your research paper down in the sort of comments below. But yeah, if you do have any sort of questions about equipment or whatever, let us know down in the comments below. And yeah, try to use that hashtag AskMark just so it's a lot easier for us to find. As ever, thank you for watching, everybody. Don't forget to check out our merchandise store if you're watching this on YouTube.
I always forget Teesprings. Always.
I know. There's going to be a banner down below this video where you can get some merchandise like this. They've just announced some new eco-friendly ranges that I'm going to check out a little bit. So yeah, maybe that's going to be a limited edition with a new design that I've been coming up. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Is that the one with the unicorns?
Yeah.
The diving unicorns. Cool. Anyway, sorry,
you're going to get people all excited about diving unicorns, and it's not going to happen.
I ruined your tag.
You know that's not what I've.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.
Stay classy, scuba divers.